Hi, Paul from Contemporary Synth here. In these tutorials, we look at the technical and artistic capabilities of the Roland Fantom O workstation. Today, I'm going to show you one way to record some backing tracks to Ableton Live Lite and then trigger them from the keyboard so you can kind of have this hybrid performance. The song I'm going to use is Psalm 95, If Today You Hear God's Voice. It shows up in our readings quite a bit, and all the settings in the hymnals are kind of old and a little conservative. They're beautiful, but they are certainly not modern, so the team asked me to create a more contemporary setting, which that's what we're going to work with today. And maybe someday I'll be able to actually use what we come up with here. I'm in an initial scene on the keyboard, and I'm in what I've created as an initial scene in Ableton Live, and I saved it here so it has 4 MIDI channels and 4 audio channels. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually record these backing tracks, but let me show you the setup, because this question has come up before. In the audio, I have the Fantom 06, 07, and 08 selected under the ACO driver, and in the link tempo MIDI, I have the DAW control selected for both the input and the output. I imagine the MIDI in would be if you're actually using MIDI cables, and I don't know what the top one's for. We'll figure that out later. And then down here, I use the track button for the MIDI tones, and then the remote button on the top row for the MIDI control signals that we'll use for the triggers. And then the remote in the next line is for the pads, which I'm not using today, but I leave it checked so I don't forget later. And then this is to get tones out. I could probably click the remote button there and get Ableton control signals to trigger the keyboard, and that might be fun to experiment with someday, but I'm definitely not doing that today. All right, so I'm going to do as many controls on here as I can so you can see it more easily. I need to go to DAW control, connect to Ableton Live, and here they are, as you can see. I'm going to show all 4 audio channels, and let's get started with the first one. I'm going to trigger it to record, and in order to get level, I have to enable the microphone. Check, check, check. There that is. And now I'm seeing level nice and high. I'll turn it down a bit. And I can record. Now you also notice that playing the keys goes out through the main. So since I'm going to need a cue note to sing along with, I'm going to go to zone 1 and change that output to the sub mix. And I have a little USB speaker here connected to the sub out so I can hear that. And it's not very loud in the mix. You're getting a little chorus and reverb in there, but that's not going to hurt anything. Go here and go to this menu. You can see that it's a circle and not a square because it's ready to record. I'm going to enable the metronome, set the tempo to 150. This is not the keyboard tempo. This is the Ableton tempo that also shows up in the top left corner of the screen. And let's do my part. I'm going to do, if today you hear his voice. All right, let's try it. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. 4. All right, let's see what we got. If today you hear his voice. That's fine. Now it's probably a little loud. I can turn it down over here. All right, let's go to the next one. I need to enable it, or arm it. And that part's going to be, if today you hear his... All right, let's do it. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Let's check that one out. If today you hear his voice, harden not. Good enough. And then number 7. I'm going to turn this guy down a bit too. Arm that. And this one's going to be, if today you hear his voice. And record. If today you hear... I didn't get my note. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. All right. Guys are kind of hard to distinguish. Let's pan these guys a little bit too. Turn that off, and here we go. If today you hear his voice, hard and... Good enough. Okay. That is going to be the backing track for the refrain. Let's put some of the rest of the song in here now so we can add that, have some instruments to add that to. I'm going to use channel 8 to actually trigger the voices. So I don't need to put anything there. I'm going to use channel 7 for drums, and I will add those later. The next thing I'm going to add now is bass. My bass is going to be the AX fretless, and I'm going to make one small change to it. When the pitch bend wheel defaults to 2 half steps, I want to change the upward bend to much more. And hold down Shift and press it. So I can change the bend range up. Instead of 2 half steps, I'm going to make it 2 whole measures because I want to add a woo effect that they get. It's actually hard to play on here, and I may not get it right, but I think that's when you think fretless bass, you think a guy's doing those scoops, and I want to get that in here. All right, I do need to change the tempo of the keyboard up to 150, and I'm going to do the introduction first. Do need a wait note. I'm going to use the quantization again today, but for the bass, that's easy. I'm going to set it to 1/8, which is a little more aggressive than usual, but this is a very fast tempo, so that's not unreasonable for this song. Looking at my music, I'm going to put the PDF files and the MIDI files in the description, so if you want any of this music, you can have it. And let's go. That is the intro. Now I'm going to add a flute, plain old flute. Length is 4. This is just our intro. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last instrument is going to be a brass section, and this is a great tone here. You have to say it carefully. Trumpet and sax section. Up here, it sounds like trumpets. Here it sounds like trombones. There it sounds like tenor sax. And the bari. This is a really fun tune. Now on this one I have to play both hands. Let's see if we do here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now that was the 4-measure intro. I'm now going to do a 8-measure refrain. This is 8 measures. We'll start with the bass. I'm looking at my music. All right. All right, a little error in there, but I think it just adds some color. Flute, 8 measures. 1, 2, and our cool brass section, 8 measures, and he gets a 3-measure rest. Now that we have the refrain, let's put our patterns in here using this channel 8 as the trigger. I just said that the refrain is 8 measures long. I now want to cue these tracks that we recorded using the MIDI notes from channel 8. And the first thing I need to do here is add MIDI controls to that. So I'm going to use this MIDI button here. And first thing I want to add is the first track we recorded, which is just the refrain. And I'm going to use the C note to do that. So when I press C, notice this channel 8, C3. I would call that C4, but that's cool. And then I want to cue all 3 of them by playing over here, and that's going to be D. So C is just the first one, and then D is all 3 of them. And then to stop it, I need to use, let me make sure I'm looking at the right spot here, this guy, which is stop all clips, and I'm going to make that E. Now, something I've learned the hard way is that you also have to stop it up here in the transport where the metronome keeps going, and then your clips will only start on downbeats. And for whatever reason, it lets you use the same key to stop them both at the same time. So I turn off MIDI, and now I can test it. If today you hit stop. If today. So sometimes you have to stop it twice, and that's why it's wonky. But as long as I keep it in sequence, it works. Let's put those. Now all I need to do is put these notes in my pattern, and I'm good. So I want C4 if today you to start on beat 1. I'm only looking right. C4. Oop, I missed. If today you, and then I want to stop it at the end of beat 4, which is an E, which is there. And you need to stop it, or it will. I could turn the repeat off, but it gets out of sync, and then when you try to start the next one, it contends. If today, definitely better to start the clip and then stop the clip and then start the next clip, which is here. If today, and so the D, and then the D is going to play all 3 of them, and then when I get to the end, I'll stop it again. So there's the pattern. It's going to play the first, that clip from channel 5, and then it's going to play all 3 of them after that. Let's do the verse, because this is the verse is going to be the exact same thing. I'm put in the instruments and then put in some vocals to go with it, and then we'll group it all up and play it. We're going to start with the bass. The verse is 16 measures long, and it's got the bass swoop in here, so we'll see how that works out. Next is the flute, 16 measures, and she rests for 7. I say she because both flutists in our group are women. She's going to come in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, brass. They 16 measures, and they have a 6-measure rest. The trick is the vocals are going to come in after that rest also. All right, I don't think I got exactly what was there, but I think you're going to get the point of how the song works. Let's record the backing vocal for the refrain. To do that, I actually don't need to be in channel 8. I need to be in channel 1, but I do need to go back to DAW control, and that's going to be my 4th audio channel. We go over here to kick it off. Let me play my part. Let us come to, all right. Let us come to him with songs of praise, joyfully sing to God. Gain is fine. Now we're going to put this in channel 8. Edit, we just said the verse was 16 measures long. And the backing part comes in on measure 9, which is just the second half of the verse. What I need to do is go back to this MIDI thing here. Put the magnifier back on. The MIDI button. Actually, I put this audio in the same scene, and I don't want this to kick off when I play the refrain, so I need to move it to its own scene. And I will put, I could do it either on the clip or on the scene. Let us come to that. It's just the one, so I'll just put it there. MIDI. Select here, and I'm going to make that F on channel 8. There it is. F on channel 8, and the E will still stop it, just as it stops the other one. And turn off the MIDI, turn off the magnifier, and test it. Let us come. And E stops it. So where's my let us? It's already in the right spot. So that goes on measure 9. And it is, if I look over here, it's 7 measures long. So I need to turn it off at the end of measure 15 with the E. Nothing to it. So there is that. Last thing to add are the drums. So let's go back up to here. For the drums, I'm going to use a room kit, which is simple. For the introduction, I'm going to use kick, snare, and the shut hi-hat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to edit it and put a crash at the end. We've done this before, but if you put it at the very end, the decay of the crash cymbal makes it sound like it actually struck on the first beat of the following measure, which is a great way to end the song. And you need to make sure the volume's nice and high. And I'm going to add a kick and do the exact same thing. Sometimes it's easier to move the volume before you move the note, because there's another note there, it gets in the way. There's that. All right, let's do same thing here. If today you hear his... Don't need to hear that. Let's disable that for now. And this is 8 measures for the refrain. Same thing, snare and shut hat. And then finally, for the verse, which is 16, I'm going to use the cross stick and a ride cymbal, and I'm going to switch to another ride cymbal halfway through. Let us come to him with songs of praise, joyfully sing to God. Listening to that track, I think it's a little loud. Let's disable the record, turn this down, and actually at the same time I can turn off this microphone. There we go. Where are we now? Almost ready to play it. Last time I played it all by kicking the patterns off this way, and that was really hard. So this time I'm going to group everything the way it was meant to be. So my first group, okay, exit, is going to be the introduction, which we said was 4 measures. My next group, which is this guy, if today you... Stop it. Grouping. This is going to be my refrain, which we said was 8 measures. And this guy is my verse grouping. Set. Okay. Group. This guy's 16 measures. Now let's make the song. This sounds arbitrary, but it makes sense after if you've watched this or looked at the music a couple of times. You'll see it starts with introduction, refrain, interlude, verse, refrain, outro. I know that sounds awful, but it will make sense. Promise me. I promise you. And that's all we need. I'm going to start it with the pedal. Shift, pedal. And look at, I know it's 113 because I've done this a few times by now. There it is. And I'm going to play on the piano. But the piano is still going out through the USB speaker. So now that's there. Let's see. So we don't need to hear the trigger channel at all. There's your drums, a little bit of bass, lots of horns, a little bit of flute. And I am going to watch it here. So you can see the tracks start and stop because the pedal starts the song even when the song menu is not showing here. And I think we're ready. This is Psalm 95, If Today You Hear His Voice. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Come, let us sing with joy to the Lord. Cry out to him who saves us. Let us come to him with songs of praise. Joyfully sing to God. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. There you go. So I hope that gives you some ideas. I hope it maybe showed you something you didn't know. And I hope you're enjoying these, and I hope you subscribe. I'll see you next time.